So as many of you know, I'm a pretty big fan of the Orient Kamasu. And one of the biggest reasons I'm a fan is the value. For the price, I think it's one of the best dive watches available on the market today. However, it wasn't that long ago that I was watching videos about the incredible amount of value you could get with the Seiko Samurai. It made such an impression on me that I eventually bought a Seiko Samurai. This one here pictured in orange. Admittedly, not the most flexible or versatile colorway, but a pretty cool looking watch all the same. So I think the obvious question this brings up, pretty simple. Which one's the better watch? Which one's the better value? Which one would I recommend if I could only recommend one? So going into this, I have to be upfront. I liked my green Kamasu so much that I ended up buying the red one as well. Regardless, I think I can do a pretty good job of being fair and seeing which watch I really think is the better watch for the money. One of the things to remember, of course, is that Seiko is the parent company of Orient. So if we're talking about things like lume, they're both using Seiko Lumibrite. And, generally speaking, Orients are priced slightly under even entry-level Seikos. Getting into the dimensions, these are not similarly sized watches. The Orient has a case size of 41.8 millimeters, a thickness of 12.8, a lug-to-lug of a very manageable 46.3, a lug-to-lug width of 22 millimeters, tapered to 20, and it weighs 153 grams and has the Auto Orient F6922 movement. The Seiko, on the other hand, has a case size of 43, but the bezel length is 44 millimeters and it's 49 millimeters across all the way to the crown. It has a case thickness of 13.2 millimeters, a lug-to-lug of 49. It does have drilled lugs. The lug width is a taper from 22 to 20. It weighs 185 grams size from my wrist with the Seiko 4R35 movement. Now, what all that really translates to is that with the Orient Kamasu, you have a watch that wears like a 40 or to a 41 millimeter watch. It's very manageable and it has very typical dimensions for a watch. While with the Seiko Samurai, you're talking about a watch that wears more like a 43. It's about 44 across if you look at the bezel, but because the lug-to-lug is not that long, it wears more like a 43. It's still a much bigger watch. It's much heftier. It has a much more angular and just kind of chock full of metal type of case. Both of the movements are of a robust quality and have similar traits. They're both running about plus 25 to minus 15. My personal experience has been that my green Kamasu has a running time of about plus 15 to about plus 20 seconds a day, while my Seiko Samurai is a plus 12 to plus 15 seconds a day. But then my red Kamasu is about plus 3 or plus 4 seconds a day, which is, technically a COSC level watch. I don't know if it'll stay that way. When you're talking about entry-level watches, it's the luck of the draw. If it's running within spec, you can't really send it back for any reason. And sometimes they're going to run really well, and sometimes they're going to run to the limits of that spec. On the wrist, the Seiko is big, chunky, and substantial. It feels good on the wrist, and you always are aware that it's there. If we look a little more closely, we can get a good look at the case. It's thick, it's flat, it's angular. It's kind of odd, but it's pretty cool. And one of the benefits that we have with the Seiko is it does have drilled lugs, which the Orient doesn't have. Another one of the things I like better about the Seiko is the crown. It's big, knurled, and substantial, and easy to adjust. Not so with the Orient. The Orient has an undersized crown, and it's not necessarily all that easy to screw back in. You're never quite sure if it's all the way in or not. Contra-wise, my Orient is a better fit on my just under 17 centimeter wrist. It has a smoother, curvier case that wraps around a little bit nicer as well. It just feels better on my wrist. It's the kind of watch I can put on and actually forget at points that I'm wearing. I suppose the elephant in the room in terms of the differences for these watches are the price and the fact that the Orient has a sapphire crystal. It's very scratch resistant. It's not a mineral crystal, it's actual sapphire, and that's just about impossible to scratch. It's a big difference. The price is also somewhat different too. I'm not going to talk about the list prices or that manufacturer suggested price. I'm going to talk about what you can get the watch for. I bought my green Orient Kamasu off of Joma's shop for $210. The best price I could find for my Seiko Samurai when I bought it not that long ago was about $287, and I bought my red Orient Kamasu off of Joma's shop for $195. That's a pretty big difference. How big a difference is it? It's a big enough difference that I bought the red one and then went to Strapcode and bought their Jubilee style bracelet for $90 and still spent slightly less, $2 less than I did for the Samurai outright. Both watches feature Seiko Lumibrite and both have very good lume, but the Seiko's markers are bigger and it just seems like it's more heavily lumed. As good as the Orient is, if you haven't seen the light of day in 5 hours and you look down at your wrist, you'll be able to see either watch pretty clearly in the dark, but the Seiko simply has the better lume. It just has more of it, and it just seems to be a little thicker as well. There are some other obvious differences between the Samurai and the Kamasu. The Samurai has a date window. The Kamasu has a day and date window. There's not much point in talking too much about this. You either like a day date or you don't, or you like a date or you don't. There's advantages to the Samurai. It has a better crown. The crown on the Kamasu is a little bit of a pain in the butt. It has slightly better lume. I think it has the more attractive bezel. I'm not really in love with the bezel of the Kamasu. On the other hand, the Kamasu I think has a more universally shaped, better shaped case. And it has, I think, more interesting colorways. I'm not really, even with the special editions, there's nothing about the Samurai special editions that really jump out for me. I also think the Kamasu's sapphire crystal is a game changer. If you combine that with the fact that it's also, you can buy one for under $200. I just did a few weeks ago. That's an incredible price. So it is a less expensive watch. It has the sapphire crystal. It runs in a very similar manner, has a very similar power reserve and accuracy rating. The difference in price is not insubstantial if you go by percentage. $285 versus $195, it's only $90. You can buy a Strapco bracelet for that. But if you only have $200 budgeted for your watch, you can afford the Kamasu. If you shop around, you can't afford the Seiko unless you buy it maybe pre-owned. Taking into consideration that the watch will take a beating, there will be signs of life, but nobody, that I know at least, enjoys those signs of life to include scratches on the actual crystal. We can handle it on the watch case, we can definitely handle it on the bracelet, and we can even deal with it on those stainless steel bezel inserts. But on the crystal, nobody likes that, and you don't have to worry about that with the Kamasu. Look, when we were watching videos 2 years ago and everybody was talking about what great value you could get out of a Seiko Samurai, they weren't wrong, they weren't lying. It's still a very high value proposition. You're getting a lot of watch for the money. You're getting a very cool, unique looking case design. You're getting all that Seiko heritage. There's an affinity between the Samurai and the Shogun, or well, I don't know, the Turtle, all of them, the SKX. And there's a history there. You don't really have that with Orient. You're getting some things you're paying for. It's a little different. But if you're just talking about dollar for dollar value right now, I'm sorry, I have to lean in the direction of the Orient. There's some things about it I don't love. I'm not in love with the bezel insert, and the notches on the bezel don't throw me either. I'm not in love with the crown. It is a bit undersized, but $195? Practical price, that's what I paid for the red one there, and it's just a gorgeous watch. I can go out and get a Strapco bracelet and still have paid the same amount. That's a lot of value. We're talking about $195 versus $287 are the best prices I could find at the time. Well, that means basically that the Kamasu was 68% of the price of the Samurai. And you're still getting, again, the movements are practically the same in terms of general performance. The bracelet, maybe if you're going to stick with the stock bracelet, you can make a case that the Samurai has a slightly better bracelet. It does have a diver's extension, and the Kamasu does not. And it has slightly better loom. There's a lot to like, but I just think that the Kamasu is a better fitting watch, a more comfortable watch. And again, I know that sapphire crystals are not that expensive. I don't understand why Seiko doesn't put them on all their watches at this point, but they don't. And I think that sapphire crystal is a difference maker when you also combine the fact that you can get it for 68%. 68%, it's a pretty big difference. You really can't go wrong with either one of these watches, pretty much in any of the colorways. They're good looking watches. I don't think there's a bad version of either watch, and you'll get a lot of great use out of both of them. But if I have to pick one, and it's going to be about value, I got to say the new king of the block for the under $300 area for watches, I think for divers at least, has got to be the Orient Kamasu. Thank you for watching.